just feel like this little being in relation to like all these cars like flying by past you.
In Santa Clara County, for example, in the next 25 years, we'll probably have about 1 in 5 adults over the age of 65.
And it's a huge problem because El Camino is essentially like built for cars, and it's not friendly to pedestrians or to cyclists.
The way we've been designing California since World War II is really around the car. And so we haven't given people a lot of choices. We've really kind of segregated our homes from our jobs, from our shops, from our schools, from everything. And so people feel forced to drive.
El Camino just makes me feel uncomfortable as a cyclist.
Whenever, like the only time I decide, oh, I need to drive to this place, it's to a place where I have to go down El Camino for a certain period of time.
But I think everywhere should have more bike lanes. Absolutely.
And when you make it a lot easier for people to ride their bike, they're going to ride their bike. And if you make it a lot easier to take transit, they're going to take transit. And so it's really not about taking people's cars away and banning cars from certain parts of cities. It's really giving people more choices.
American is about freedom, it's about health, it's about independence. None of those things do you have when everything is car-ridden.
And I really wish they would change that by either creating like a pedestrian or a bike path that runs parallel to El Camino, or by expanding El Camino to create a really wide shoulder that would be accessible to pedestrians and cyclists.
It represents to us a great opportunity for local government to come together with the private sector and work on an important issue. That is the redevelopment of El Camino Real, a central corridor in all of our cities.
El Camino Real is perhaps one of the best opportunity sites in the Bay Area for new development. So one way to address climate change is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. One way you do that is by reducing vehicle miles traveled, and one way you do that is by giving people more options to walk, ride their bike, or take transit. Basically giving people a lot of options to get around without having to be dependent on the car.
To densify the corridor would allow greater opportunities for people of all ages and all income levels to live closer to their jobs here in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties.
I think the Grand Boulevard Initiative is a very exciting endeavor.
A huge number of projects have been completed along the El Camino corridor since the project began. One of the major projects that we completed in 2010 for the Grand Boulevard Initiative was the Multimodal Corridor Study, where we looked closely at the current road conditions and determined how to make the road safer for pedestrians and bikers as well as for cars. And as we look towards densifying the corridor, it's critically important that we address the issues of livability and safety along the road. When trying to visualize what the Grand Boulevard might look like, you might think of downtown Redwood City and how many changes and improvements have come about in the last few years surrounding the downtown train station. It's really been a marvel to see the improvements go in, and the city has done so much to encourage appropriate, high-density development that fits the culture of Redwood City's community. Some of the major planning initiatives that have led to real improvements along the road include Redwood City's recent roadway improvements near Sequoia High School, as well as the Stanford Avenue intersection improvements going on currently in Palo Alto.
I think when you start to create the type of communities that you can do along El Camino Real, people will start to see walking or riding their bikes or taking transit as a much more attractive, much more convenient alternative. Ultimately, it's extremely important to build community support for these kind of projects because you want to get the creative ideas and solutions that a lot of residents will have.